Soon after Thanksgiving, on the October new moon, and 2 weeks before one of the most important initiations of my life, I met with my fellow witches in the woods and went to our Samhain Witch Camp. The truth is that I had every intention of filming a video that was similar in format to my first witch camp video at Beltane, but this camp didn't go as planned for me. I just got to witch camp. It was a friggin' mad dash, if there has ever been one. But I am here and I'm about to set up and pick my spot. I get first tent spot pick. So I'm gonna put my tent right there. There's a lot of good spots though. I don't think I've mentioned yet, but I'm actually on the volunteer committee now. And so I've arrived a day early to help set everything up. And I'm really excited to see how this all works and just kind of be with these people as we set up and prepare for everyone to arrive tomorrow. It's gonna be really nice. Samhain is a time of transformation and alchemy. It marks the end of the Wheel of the Year, and it's also known as the Witch's New Year. At this time on the wheel, we welcome death and transformation as we let go of old cycles and patterns and thought forms that are no longer serving us or holding us back, and as we declare our intentions for our growth through the next turn of the wheel. At this threshold, the veils between the spiritual realms are thin. We can strongly sense portals, gateways, ancestors, and spirits. Our knowing and understanding of the spiritual realms deepens, and thus does our understanding of ourselves. This is also a time for grief, as we grieve past versions of ourselves and as we grieve the seasons that have come before. Actually though, this does look like the Blair Witch. I just wanted to say that pine cones keep dropping on my tent, and it's really scary. And I've got 2 water bottle heaters, so I should be warm for a couple hours. For us at Witch Camp, we always create a circle for the weekend. We ground with the land and set intentions as a collective. It helps to create unity, foster connection with each other, and also with the land and the ancestral spirits here. This time, I could feel our collective energy mirroring the earth, revealing the thinning veil. Ty and I heard musical instruments last night playing like in our hangout area, and everyone says that they were asleep. So, as well, I want to mention that this witch camp lands on the new moon eclipse. Last time in the spring, we were gathering on a full moon eclipse. This time we are welcoming the darkness with Samhain so we can celebrate what's about to come and what is here now. This is where our big ceremony ritual is going to be. Each tent represents one of the elements, and people are kind of manning those tents, and they are going to be creating an experience for all of us. When I arrived at camp, I was in an incredibly vulnerable place. All of my foundations were crumbling, and my reality was glitching. At the last witch camp at Beltane, I realized it was time for me to receive my last cord as a witch, my black cord. I was to initiate as a black cord high priestess and elder witch with the 13th house mystery school, something I had been working towards for nearly 8 years. And as soon as I set the intention for it, spirit started testing me, and I descended into the deepest shadow work I've ever done. And it was test after test, and my past kept meeting me in the present and offering me a chance to react differently. I was doing the hard work of clearing complex trauma in preparation for a recalibration, but I was mostly doing it all alone, and my isolation and my loneliness during this shadow work was making me doubt myself deeply. Instead of becoming more embodied and empowered, I felt myself getting weaker and more exhausted.
Every new moon or every full moon, I put a new crystal on and one without and see like what the difference is.
Or I couldn't tell me.
Rosemary, but I need some of this.
They have.
I'm spiraling it.
When I got to witch camp, I was surrounded by people after such long periods of loneliness. I felt completely out of body and in a state of disassociation. I was in flight, and my body was reacting. My period was 5 days late, which had never happened to me before. I was in physical, spiritual, and emotional pain. But what I quickly realized was that I wasn't the only witch there in a vulnerable place. So many of us were nursing wounds, dealing with pain, being confronted with family trauma, and so many of us were painfully exploring our individual inner worlds while being surrounded by this community. And on the night of the new moon eclipse, the fog fell over the land, and I was enchanted. Even though the moon was dark, the dancing spirits within the fog were so bright, illuminating the trees and revealing portals from one world to the next. I was paralyzed by the intensity of it all, the wonder of it all. The fog lifted a veil where I was standing between ordinary reality and non-ordinary reality, and as I stood at this threshold, I could feel my deepest wounds festering within my womb, wounds that have tied cords within me so tight I was suffocating. Spirit was showing me what I needed to see, release, and embrace, and the fog gave me a safe space to let my agony take me, so I could begin turning my pain into my empowerment, allowing me to alchemize what was once killing me and be reborn with my black cord on the next full moon. That next morning, my moon cycle finally arrived, and it felt like I was a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. As I was in my own world at witch camp, I even chose to sit out some of the events and explore my shadows and my epiphanies. As I read cards, I received the ovaries card and the sexual energy card, which felt like one of those duh moments. And from the Broomstick Boutique, I received a box that was so similar to one I had as a child, and it felt so full of magic. I was also gifted this bat rock, which was funny because not long ago, I woke up to a bat in my living room. On our last night before the main ritual that the witches had been planning for months, our witch camp founder Genuine had to make the hardest choice to leave as a result of a prior injury that she had. She needed to take care of herself, but to do that she had to make a sacrifice as we do at Samhain. She too was being called in her own way to journey through her pain. I was with her when she made the choice, and so I offered to take on her role in the ritual. Suddenly, I had 30 minutes to learn it all and shift myself into embodying the goddess of earth during a time where I felt like I was fire and air. It was a test, I knew it was, and it was one of my final tests. I had to completely shift my energy, tune into my power and my inner knowing, and get my shit together. Each of the witches represented an element, and they created an experience for all of us. It was unbelievable and stunning. It was so immersive. Each tent smelled like its element. The lights and sounds created new worlds. Even the fire tent was warm. Their hard work had paid off, and each of us had an experience that we'll never forget. For me, this witch camp was completely different than the last. Our collective energies were mirroring what was occurring within nature, and we created a bond with the land that allowed us to feel into our shadows and our light, experiencing the duality of life force energy within us, and awakening us into a higher growth and awareness. And for me, it was an experience like no other. And finally, I was ready to emerge from my maiden cycle and step through the threshold towards my next phase.